Ghost Chronicles. This is Henry, my husband, my videographer, my assistant, my trusted friend, Marna. And anyway, I'm going to pass this out to you guys as a visual. It's kind of like a school teacher. But basically, it's going to explain not only about this building that was built in the 1930s by Alfred Dupont, who was the mover and the shaker for the Florida National Bank, but there was, before there was even a hotel here called the Allison for 30 years. Before there was even a hotel here called the Allison for 30 years, there was also, if you want to look on back and forth and pass them around, there was outbreaks of yellow fever here in Miami and typhoid epidemics. Passing around. And that gives you sometimes, as people look at buildings, but sometimes what's happening on that piece of land does affect as far as paranormal events, whether they're intelligent or residual. Residual means, you know, something, like sometimes you have the aroma of coffee, for example, if that was every day. Or you hear people saying, well, I hear somebody going up and down the stairs, or certain noises. Sometimes it's just something that was done repetitively, especially in a building for this length of time. But like I said, there was this beautiful hotel that was basically demolished to put this in place. And then before that, as a matter of fact, there was a ship, a quarantine ship, parked over there where Rickenbacker Causeway is now, where they would quarantine you because the fear of yellow fever was so great. And as you can tell there, they would have what was called an immunity card, which meant that if you had ever gotten yellow fever, you could go around because they considered you immune. But there was an epidemic here about 1897, after the Spanish-American War. The soldiers brought typhoid and measles, and then the yellow fever came in around 1900. And this right here, this area, was the beginning of Miami. Everything that happened when Miami was established was here. Biscayne Bay, this whole area saw Miami grow and expand westward. And one of the stories, if you look on there, the gentleman that designed this building, I'm sorry, the hotel that was here before, was Stanford White. And in his day, he was a very famous architect. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that story, The Girl in the Velvet Swing. He was involved in a very, especially back then, scandalous love affair. When he was 47 years old, he seduced a 16-year-old girl that was very famous. Her name was Evelyn Nesbit. She was known as the Gibson Girl. And eventually she married, and her husband, kind of a little bit crazily, couldn't get over the fact that his wife at one time had been seduced by this man, and one day went and shot him dead, about 3 years after they had completed the house and hotel. And Miami had such a long memory. In the 1930s, she came back to Miami. She wanted to open a cabaret. And Miami said, the city of Miami said no. It was within, as a matter of fact, the view of the hotel. And they turned her away. And she ended up working at a place in Northwest Miami at that time called the Silver Slipper Cabaret. And because back then the morals were that you got tainted even though it was 30 years later. And there's a picture of her. She's very famous. She was like the prototype of the Edwardian lady that was used by a lot of artists. That's why she became so famous. And she ended up getting involved with 2 millionaires. And by the way, her husband, it was considered the trial of the century. And even though he was convicted, nothing became of it. He was considered insane, and eventually they let him go. And but he was truly crazy. Even after they let him go, he was known for whipping women and almost to death. Crazy guy. But anyway, her life, she kind of like went downhill. And then after that, like I said, in the 1930s, 1938, they opened this building. As you can tell, it was one of the first skyscrapers here for Miami. And unusual, they do have a number 13th floor, which is a lot of buildings, that even hotels, that they skip over that 13th floor because of that number 13, like bad luck kind of thing. But they had it, and we decided to start up here because, as you could tell on that handout, there's a gentleman by the name of Grant Stockdale. And he was, at one point, he was the ambassador to Ireland. And he had resigned that post, and this was back in the 60s. And he was a very important man in Miami, and he was considered a very close friend of President Kennedy. And within 3 days of the president being assassinated,
he had his office here on the 13th floor. And the story goes that he committed suicide, even though conspiracy theorists say that he might have been murdered. As a matter of fact, you'll see on that clipping of the newspaper, it says no motive found. There was no note found. His secretary that day supposedly had a dentist appointment. But the people that saw him said he looked and find spirits, and the next thing you know, he landed on the 5th floor terrace, which we're going to go down there, which that also has something going on. So that's kind of the things that we know of. I also put on there, when the bank opened in 1938, you can see a roster of the employees. This was such a big event. And the reason why I say this, that even though, we have that famous suicide and, sometimes you do have hauntings for people coming back to where they work. Especially back then, people would work at places 20, 30, 40 years, and they spent a lot of time here, or their jobs meant a lot to them. So that's why I placed that. We could have people showing up as far as capturing evidence, not from anybody that we could identify. Maybe somebody that just lived their lives out. They were never famous, they never made the papers, they were never scandalous, but they decided to hang out here. And as you can tell, and that's another thing, this building, even though it's been renovated, it has almost all the original materials that it was built with. If you looked at the elevator doors, those are original. The tiles, if you look at these doors we're going to look at, those are all the original. And that has a lot to do also with ambiance. Because sometimes I renovate buildings, but they basically strip out the original stuff. All of these things are almost, with the exception of a few things, the original hardware and how it was built. So, and that's another thing, and the reason also, like I said, it was for 30 years a hotel. A lot of things go on in hotels, a lot. So one thing I did want to, I have extra flashlight if somebody doesn't have a phone or a flashlight, okay? My recommendation to you, considering that we're a little bit pressed for time, normally paranormal investigations, it's not an on-demand thing. Sometimes you need more time, in other words. However, what I would suggest is if you're with somebody and you feel something around you, cold draft, even though I didn't bring anything having to do with temperature or EMF readings because I can't control the temperature. But if you feel a cold draft, your skin prickles, you have somebody with you, ask them to take a picture. If you want to run the recorder, your voice recorder on your phone, a lot of times you will pick up what they call EVPs when you play it back. You can't hear it with your ears, but you will pick it up when you play it back. All right, and in my experience, in the spirit world, in the paranormal world, when they attempt any type of spirit communication, and I'm positive, there's plenty of you here that are sensitive to begin with. What I mean by sensitive, they're more sensitive to spirit, you're going to draw in, if they can, to communicate or make their presence known. It's not that easy for them. So it's not like having a conversation with another human. Sometimes you get delayed, maybe you get one word. So what I did was I brought some, if anybody wants some flashlights, they're called flashlight communicators, and basically just turn them on, screw the back off a little bit so it loses the contact, and you can ask like yes or no questions and it'll light up. I've used that very successfully. Okay? You just can't ask really complicated questions because, the answer is very difficult because basically you're asking, if the answer is yes, turn the light on, etc. If no, don't turn it on. So we're going to go down to the 5th floor because these offices, they're occupied. But we started up here, number one, because it's the 13th floor. And number two, this is where the office where that was very famous suicide took place. And as a matter of fact, we're going to go down now to the 5th floor. There's a terrace there, right outside the 5th floor, which is where he landed. And as a matter of fact, a priest from Jesuit Church, which is right here, I think, ran over and administered the last rites to him. I don't know if he was dead or alive, but he administered last rites. And he was pronounced dead, and even now, there's still a mystery. I read some blogs, and even now, after so many years, there's a lot of debate as to whether he truly did commit suicide, because supposedly they said that he was despondent over the president's assassination, but a lot of people still don't think he left behind a wife and children, and he was a successful businessman, so it's still kind of one way fodder for conspiracy theorists.
Really?
contacted us last week and she said he was murdered and that this was proven in court, and we were completely shocked to have an email from his daughter. So she's alive and very much defending this whole idea that he did not commit suicide. He was assassinated.
Right, and that's one of the things I saw in several of the blogs that not her, but that different people propose different theories.
Targeted in connection with, I don't know what you told you, because of his friendship or his alliance with President Kennedy.
There's definitely a connection there.
So yeah, maybe now that they release it, we'll find out what's going to go on. I don't know, but anyway.
So Fifth Floria.
So what we're going to do now is this, does anybody want a pushback? I only have flashlights. Okay, basically what you do is you unscrew the top of the contact until it just goes like barely, and that's when you start asking questions. Here you go. And that. Does anybody need a regular flashlight? All right, guys, we'll go around to the side where the terrace was that this poor man landed on. But besides that, cleaning lady who still works here, but has worked here since the 1980s. She's even seen a lady walk across. Okay? And from what I understand, even when it was occupied, this lady's bathroom was like the place like you took your girlfriend to for whatever, like, I need to go to the bathroom, come with me. So, do I have any volunteers who wants to go into the dark bathroom? Yeah. Okay, let's bring it. Okay, who was, I'll take 5. Myrna.
I'm right behind you.
Okay, let's take the first 5. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I want to go.
Okay, 4. Here, come here.
Yeah,
okay. Girls only.
Come on. That's sexist. Come on, I'm not gonna party.
One more girl.
Oh, it stinks.
Yes, that's it.
Oh,
Like a little girl is coming.
it smells.
Oh, shit.
There's bugs on the floor. There's what?
There's cockroaches?
Yes, it is.
There's what?
The roaches. Oh, look, it's on. It wasn't on roaches. There's roaches. Turns on by itself.
Lots of roaches. Watermelon.
Do these turn on? Is there a reason why there hasn't been anybody on this floor for like so many years? Wait, she's not in here with us? Thing is like turning on and off by itself.
You said I told you it was off.
Take picture, because supposedly there's been sightings in this bathroom.
No.
All right, guys, what I would suggest is if you guys want to break off into a little bit of groups, because this is the thing. If you want to capture anything, like maybe over here.
And shine your lights down because sometimes it deeps down a little bit. You don't want to end up, eating
All right, but sometimes like if you want to capture something, or like I said, if you feel something, if you want to capture it, sometimes if you separate a little bit, it's a better chance. So if you want to break off into groups, and then we're going to go also to the side. I don't want anybody to go that way because over there they've got a little bit of an open area where somebody could step down. But if you guys want to explore a little bit, by all means. This, like I said, the cleaning lady. And by the way, later on, I found out from one of the maintenance guys that not only had this lady seen something up here and heard something, other people that have come up here, which by the way happens a lot, where you have these places that are unoccupied, and if you come up here, all of a sudden, that's when you catch something. That was. How was that, lady? So, guys, if you.
How was it?
Come on, I didn't have to go. And like I said, this and when we go over there, I'm not gonna say anything. When we go down that wing, there's a special feeling there that I've come here in the daytime and I've experienced it, which is real, I mean, and other people have experienced it. And there's something going on, especially on that hallway down there. So, we're gonna, is everybody still in the balcony? Wow. Same experience. And if you look, all these windows, these are like the old type windows that they would have. Because remember, when this building was built, there was no central AC. And what happens is that we were even wondering if maybe at that time, by the 60s, they already had the central AC. Whether, we're thinking, maybe this was a secretarial pool out here and you're typing or you're doing your work. And you got executives over here in their offices. And right here, where we would have landed. Because it doesn't go all the way down to the floor. So, which is why, they were, and can you imagine, you're here working, you're typing, whatever it is that you're doing, and all of a sudden something just like comes down and you're like, what was that? And you see.
It's worse when you have it in your house.
And this is the thing, and we were even thinking at that time that they already have the central AC. As a matter of fact, that's the original ceiling there. Maybe at the time they even had the windows open. I don't know if by the 60s they already had central AC here in this building. But they might have had the windows open. And even if, let's say, if this gentleman, it's not him that's making his presence known, that type of event does leave an imprint. Even the horror that people feel when they realize, when they look out the window, what they saw, that does leave an imprint. Where sometimes people will go to certain spots and they feel uncomfortable or they feel like despair or sadness. It's not because necessarily there's something or somebody haunting it, but the imprint of something that happened. But in my experience, and I've come here a couple of times in the daytime, there is something, especially in this hallway. And I wouldn't be surprised if anybody wants to take pictures. If you might, or if you've got, like I said, the recorder, you might come up with some type of EVP. Because something was going on, especially in that hallway. Like I said, the only thing I can think of is that this area, without knowing what was here, maybe there was a typing pool, because that was how they had offices back in the 60s. You had a big secretarial pool, and then you had your managers or executives or whatever in their offices. So
you're saying take pictures? Because
Yeah.
Take pictures.
Will come out in a photo?
Yeah,
Yes.
you might pick up an orb,
Yes.
or you pick up anything.
It just depends. That's why you have some people that take pictures within seconds of each other. They won't capture anything unless it's on one picture. It could be an anomaly. There's a lot of controversy about orbs, but there are other type of light anomalies that you could catch. But there's definitely something static in that hallway right there.
And how is it like if there's like something like a ghost, let's say something, or
You know what?
If there's so many people there
This-
now,
this-
they must be happy, or it must be beautiful for them.
Well, it depends. It depends on why they're here.
Yeah.
If they're trapped,
Right.
You get some people that have passed away that know they're dead,
Right.
but they could stick around because, let's say they were a workaholic,
Right.
as an example, and their job was the end-all be-all for them.
They would kind
And this is what made them happy, even though they're kind of shorting themselves because,
Yeah.
but they want to come back to what they did. Or there was a tragedy, and sometimes, believe it or not, they don't realize they're dead.
Yeah.
And they're just still reenacting what they did, or sometimes, believe it or not, there's a lot of emotion that goes on at
Right.
workplaces
Absolutely.
that'll bind you there. Even though on the outside, especially during these times where everything was very proper, that doesn't mean things weren't going on behind the scenes.
a lot of hidden kind of things behind this.
Drama,
Yeah.
tragedies that will bind somebody. And you say, well, why would this person stay at work versus going home?
Right.
But you spend a lot of time at work, let's face it, love affairs, gossip, careers. A lot of things went on that you might have a soul of somebody that's still reliving or trapped or...
And what do you mean by trapped? How is
Okay,
that?
trapped means normally
They have to
is
come
when you
back,
die,
right?
you just go on into, you figure out I'm dead and you go on to life. That's it. The last thing you want to do is you don't have a human body anymore. So there's nothing really here for you. But if you get trapped in between, either one, because you're afraid of, if you have really, let's say, religious beliefs that you think you're going to burn in hell, you might not want to go, especially if you think you might go there. You might not know you're dead. Or you have unfinished business or sudden tragic death. Let's say somebody did something to you. I'm going to give you a perfect example, this guy. And it doesn't, what if he didn't commit suicide? What if they pushed him?
Right.
You know, and you have that sudden death tied into it. I would never have committed suicide. You know, this happened to me. You know, that's an example where you have an emotion that'll bind you because you want justice or revenge or
You
whatever.
didn't want to go.
You know, or can you imagine? You have to understand back then, especially, you know, that kind of like, even his daughter after so many years is still defending her dad. Because that makes it look like this man was not,
Believe me, take pictures.
Emotionally well.
Take pictures. Take pictures.
But again, I mean, those are just the reasons why, but not everybody's famous, you know, or does something like that, or things of that nature. Plus, you know, but yeah, this carries, or you can have a lot of positions connected, you know, there's people working. I know we won't go downstairs, but the first floor where the cafe was at, the security guy told me that the lady that would open up, at the first time she thought it was a real guy in there. Called him and said, hey, there's somebody in here. He goes in, they couldn't find anybody. Then a couple of times when she would arrive, she would be the first to arrive to open it. Same thing happened now. Then she got scared when she realized that what she was seeing, there was people go in there, you had to write a report on it. And it turned out there was nobody there. But again, that was a few years ago, a couple of years ago. He still works here. And she said, the cafe on the first floor, it's empty now. It's like, it's just got tables. And I asked him, and he said that was originally where people would eat when this was open. That was the original like eatery for the building. So, yeah, this is the, so guys, you want to go down to the second floor, because that's the one that's,
Yeah, we got that over last time.
look at, yes, that's great. Like he's got something white like passing with him. That's very back here, we have a hidden elevator, which is where they would, back there, we're not going to go back there, but there was an elevator that the bank would use, you know, they would use, you know, because of the money and security. And one time they had a gentleman come in to fix the AC. He didn't work here, he was just like contracted. They came back and I told him, hey, I just saw a really badly burnt man. And he was like, huh? He even had to write a report. The guy came shooting out of there. He was, if you go back to that hallway, it leads back to staircases and elevators that were used only by the bank for security purposes. And he was back there. He says that guy came running out of there. And he says that the guy was like pale. And he goes, I just saw a guy that looked really badly burnt. I tried to see if there was any incident like that. I couldn't. The only thing, as a matter of fact, I put on that thing was like right down the street, janitor fell from a skylight, he got killed. This was like in 1936. And sometimes things like that will drift in, but I could never account for it. And I said, unless there was, I know a lot of doctors. Oh, another thing before I forget, even though we didn't go there, on the 6th floor, they've had reports of children running around. Oh, let's go there. Oh, we can't. But, which is kind of weird, but the people, the tenants they would hear, especially in the evenings, or if somebody came in on the weekends, and they would go to the security,
so funny.
thinking, "Who are those kids running around?"
I had
And he's
that.
like, "There's no kids here." And he said various tenants, none related to each
No, I
other,
had that in the
would
lobby.
report the same thing. Where they were
I
hearing
was
kids running
leaving the
around on the
building
6th floor.
at 7:30.
Again, the only thing I can think of is maybe if there was ever a pediatrician's office up there, and
At least 3 of them. And I didn't think
but we
much
couldn't
of it.
account for it. And he said that, he said more than once, and it was always after hours or on the weekends. Of course, when it quiets down. So, who that burly man was, that's another one. I don't know.
Loud and clear, like almost like in a movie. It was beautiful.
They heard children. He heard children coming out of the
You
wood.
heard the children?
I heard children, but I was in the lobby, 11:30 at night. It was probably even a weekend. I don't know. I work here late, like freelancer, you know. like-
Okay.
I walked out of the lobby. I said goodbye to the guy at the desk.
Okay.
And I remember hearing kids laughing and playing.
There you go.
And I walked out and I didn't think much about
Right.
it because, you know, like I went to the car. I'm like, wait a minute, it's 11:30.
Who are
And
these
it was
kids?
so beautiful. It
Uh-huh.
sounded almost too beautiful to be true.
Right, and it takes a moment to realize
And I didn't
what
think
kids
about
could
it.
be running
And I
around and
was like,
laughing.
yeah, why should there be? You know, it's Miami. Sometimes families,
still,
you know. I
it's
didn't think. I was like,
Another thing, the that same the
but
guy
it's
that
the lobby, and I
it's the
think they
lobby.
were here. Like it sounded very like, you know.
He said that the first weekend he was working, he was down the first floor. It was after hours. It was like on a Friday. They had laid down cardboard because they were gonna have an event, and he said it was like this first day working. And he says he heard somebody walking around on the cardboard. He came up thinking, "Who's up there?" Nobody. And he said, I was almost ready to quit because he says every time he would go down the stairs and be downstairs, he would hear somebody walking around up here. And he also had, and I forgot to say it, up in the 5th floor, one of the times, is before he did maintenance, he did security here in the building. And he was staying here overnight for something. And he said that he went into one of these empty offices to lie down to sleep. And he says that all of a sudden he hears somebody like in the dark. He says, I almost ran out like in my underwear. He said it was a really bad feeling. So again, some of those things happen mostly either when you don't expect it, when it's quiet, after hours. Because sometimes the noises are there, but if you've got people walking around.
I've heard stuff like heels walking late at night. I have a studio here.
There you go.
Kids walking.
Not kids, but heels.
Heels.
I've been hearing heels lately.
Yeah, that's what.
Late at night.
See?
had
And you can hear that because
you know,
it's tap, tap, tap.
Yeah, like on this. you
On
hear
this.
especially, like,
Exactly.
up.
You know?
I heard our security, you know, like the number digit thing,
Right.
and nobody was there.
The
Right.
padlock, apparently, sometimes it gets typed into and nobody's at the
Nobody's
door.
there.
Yeah, and Kristen has heard it, and Stefan's
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yes, and he told me also that the first floor where that big motor, the engine that drives everything in here, he says that they hear a lot of weird stuff. And in that delivery tunnel on the first floor, and on the other side of the door, they constantly hear stuff. Like somebody working, if you're on the other side of the door, of that roll-up door, he says they hear stuff all the time.
like, what kind of stuff?
Like if somebody's working in there, you know, or, cause you know that you've got those motors running, it makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But he says he's had more than one person, either they're coming into the delivery into that tunnel, and they hear something, or somebody on the other side, hearing somebody in the tunnel, the delivery tunnel, and there's nobody there.
Wow.
So, and again, you know, I tell everybody, this is beautiful, but anywhere you have power and money, there's drama.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So true.
Hey, people, this is where you would work. Back then, it wasn't like you had a branch everywhere. So this is where people would come to do business. This is where the movers and shakers were. That's why he built this here to attract in the 1930s. Hey, if you had a company or a doctor or somebody, a professional, I want you to come and be in this building. And of course, conveniently bank with me downstairs. By the way, Alfred Dupont, he died like within a couple of years of this building starting to go up. You know, Alfred I. Dupont didn't really live long to really, but of course he belonged to that very famous Dupont family. And another that I read it back in the 1980s, an article came out where I think it was his grandson claimed that his third wife had poisoned him. Conjecture, of course. But that's one of those things again that money doesn't make you happy, especially. But yeah, even though this building bore his name, and he had been with Florida National Bank since the 1920s. I think he died, it was in 1935, I want to say 1936. But yeah, this is, I tell everybody, if you come in here back in the 30s and you look at this place, you're thinking, power, wow, you know, and then you can see this and that, and this is what it was. Back then they didn't have ATM or credit cards, so it was all cash.
It's like the building itself is like gilded.
Yeah, exactly. This was, I mean, when was the last time you went to a bank that looked like this? And this is, you know, if you look at all this, you know, there happened the big Florida land boom where everybody had come in, and then the hurricane came through, and then
26, yeah.
right, it kind of put Florida into a depression earlier than the rest of the country.
Right.
So when he started doing this, you know, it was like,
New start.
come back to Miami, come back to Florida, do business here, you know, and that's how you do it. You build something like this that people go,
And it looks like it's always been here. Like it looks
yes,
so
yes.
reassuring.
If you think, oh, this, I can trust this bank.
Right,
Put
exactly.
lots of my money in here because look at what they built. It's all about image. You know how in real estate it's location, location, location? If you're a banker, it's image, image, image. This was, you know, back then there was no machines to count money for you. You really had to, it was a very responsible position if you worked in banking, whatever it was. And people stayed here for 10, 20, this was their career. And, you know, you were looked at, you were identified, and kind of carried a little bit of prestige. So, you know, those are the kind of things that anchor sometimes people, personalities to their workplace. Versus, like I said, like a home or some other place. Because that's why I'm not surprised when the guard says that he was downstairs and he heard the walking around. Yeah, somebody that's just maybe going around doing their daily. And who was it? The other lady heard the tap, tap, tap of the heels. You know, let's face it, everybody back then, even, you know, I'm not sure when the bank was moved away from here, but, you know, everybody would wear, all the women would wear heels. You know, those, think of, what is the sitcom, not sitcom, the Mad Men, you know, the typical, you know, where, even to go to the grocery store.
So one of the stories that's featured in the scene, somebody talks about seeing a man in bandages.
Yes.
Blood.
Yes.
What's connected to that?
I tried to research it because, like I said, the AC repairman was the one that came out from, he went back there.
Did you guys read that story? I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what the guard saw.
Right, well, no, the guard, because the thing is that when you work security and guards, you have to make a report on all these different incidents if somebody comes to you. And this was a repairman, an AC repairman, doesn't work here, he worked for a company. And he went from, he told me, back there, he said that elevator and stairway.
What is back there? What is that?
Okay, back there,
There's a rotten egg smell there.
Really? Where?
Yeah, back there. I was just right back there, and that where there's.
Which, by the way,
what is that?
I'll tell you what. In the paranormal circles, when you get that bad smell, usually that's from a negative entity. That area back there leads to an elevator and stairs that would be used by the bank for security purposes. Because, you know, as a matter of fact, they even had the stairs in the building so that they could move back and forth. And they even had another safe up there.
No one smelled that. I had like a bunch of
Yes.
people next. No one smelled it.
And you were the only one that smelled it?
I was the only one that smelled it.
And usually that's, and like I said, there was an AC repairman came bolting out of there saying that he had seen what looked like a very badly burnt man. But it was solid enough that for a minute he was like it looked real.
He made a report about it, right?
Right, he had to make a report about it, and it was like, and then I tried to find, you know, any type of accident, and there was a couple of, you know, boating accidents out there where people they would get badly burnt, but nothing that I could really find around here. But that doesn't mean anything, you know. It could, who knows? Maybe it was a doctor's that was up there. Even though I can't imagine anybody being badly burnt and coming to see the doctor there, because from what he told me, the guy looked bad, like somebody freshly burnt. It could have been any accident in any of these areas. Like I said, that one that I put on there, that the janitor fell through a skylight 20 feet and he got killed. That's like a little blurb in the newspaper. And it's very time consuming sometimes to find it, but that's what I'm saying. It does, you know, things like this do happen.
When you go
through the back?
There's like a back way. There's like, it's like a hallway in the back.
Right,
way there.
exactly.
It smells like a rotten egg. Like you walk in there and it smells.
That right there. That's not a good sign.
It gets.
And you're the only one that smelled it. You're the only one that smelled it.
I was the only one that smelled it. I was like, don't you smell? No one smelled it.
No, it was just when I've been at the office alone, I hear somebody on the keypad trying to get into the office, thinking, a coworker is coming to the office, and I would go and check, and nobody was there, and it would happen several times.
Right, exactly.
What time?
It's like around 8 p.m.
And that's what he tells me. And he was explaining to me that after hours on the weekends, the elevator can only be accessed with security.
Yeah.
So it's not like anybody's going to wander in and go. Like that same thing with the kids running around.
Yeah.
And if you really want to go into the dark aspects, you will have people, because I'm sure everybody's heard the stories of, I hear the little kids running around or little kids laughing. In some circles, they do think that some spirits learn how to mimic children, okay? In an effort to, what does everybody say? Oh, it's a little kid. Oh, how cute.
Pique your curiosity.
Oh, it's a little kid. I'm not saying it's not little kids, but that's, in some circles, that's basically, they do it on as a way to either get somebody up there, time communication, thinking, oh, it's a little kid. Think about it. What would a bunch of little kids be doing running around in an office building? So, yeah. So it's, again, please, if anybody gets any type of evidence, I would love to hear from you guys. If anybody has got a paranormal experience of their own, I would love to hear from you. Please contact me, MiamiGhostChronicles.com, or find me on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I would love to interview you, hear your stories, even if they're second or third hand, if it didn't happen to you. I know some families have interesting stories that they pass around about when grandma saw something or whatever. So please, keep it in mind. Huh?
I work at the hospital and I take here all kinds.
What, at your house?
The hospital.
Oh, in the hospital, of course. Yeah. Of course you're gonna hear stuff in the hospital. You know how many people pass away, they don't realize it? They're medicated.
They get to the point where I'm used to it. We hear stuff and we're like...
Yes, of course, absolutely. Absolutely, you're gonna find a lot of stuff at a hospital. No, of course. A lot of people pass away and they miss the boat. They're heavily sedated, they're anesthetized, they were unconscious, they come in on an accident and they miss and then they're like, hey, why can't anybody talk to me or see me, And they're still self-aware, and that's why at a hospital, absolutely, that's a hotbed. You work at a hospital? You gotta be real careful. Yeah. Because if they think that you're a nice guy, they'll be like, oh, you remind me of their brother? They'll be like, yeah.
They'll hit you right through. Se te pegan and they'll go home with you.
You're the most Mexican person I know.
No, they'll hitch a ride with you. Wait, they'll hitch a ride with you and they'll go home to your house.
That's fine.
No, I'm serious. That sometimes you get people that they think that they miss the boat.
Blood and I've seen shadows pass by and I'm like,
there you go. See?
I've been in a patient room drawing blood and then we'll hear like a scream and then I go check it out. There's no female patients around.
Like who screams, right?
Lights will flicker.
Okay, exactly. But hospital, absolutely.
Hey, some guys scream like a little girl. Some guys scream like a little girl.
No, he's saying that you're assuming it's a woman. Maybe it's a guy screaming like a little girl. But no, I know what you're saying. That you go out there like, what? You're expecting you're gonna find some terrorized woman.
Yeah, some like
thinking what happened.
And it's like you walk around and it's like no one, and you're like, all right, you get used to it now.
Exactly. After a while, it becomes
empty rooms. The call light will go on after a patient just died. We're like, okay, let it ring until.
Yes, I've heard that a lot. Where the ringing of the phones and stuff like that. I've heard of that a lot.
Patients died and you just hear them in the room. The call light will go off and you'll be like, okay, not cool. And we won't go in there. We won't turn off. We'll let it ring.
Let it ring is like,
until
okay,
it's done,
do I really want to answer it?
Yeah. Nope.
You know what? One time I was speaking to a guy. I interviewed him, and he used to be a border patrol agent, like a long time ago. And he had a coworker that they had trained together, and the guy got killed like right after they started working. He fell off the side of a mountain. They think that he got pushed, but anyway, the guy died. And he said that he didn't know about it because if that had happened, he had stayed home. But they have those radios that they communicate with. And he says that all of a sudden, he says, I would always turn it off and put it in with my uniform in the closet. And he said he hadn't been feeling well, as a matter of fact. And he says that like about midnight, he hears the static of the radio. He's like, what? And it was like somebody trying, like basically. And he says something told him, don't answer it. And then the next day he finds out that exactly that time was when this co-worker of his, was a friend of his, had gotten killed. He says about, I think a week later, the guy, same thing, and the day of the guy's funeral, his burial, same thing, the radio goes off, the static, and he says, I didn't want to answer it because I felt that if I answered it, I was going to open the door for whatever was there to like. So that's exactly, no, he took off. He took off the power, he took off everything. But yeah, I heard that a lot, that the electronic, with a phone or the radios and stuff like that, that sometimes, especially what they call crisis apparitions, does happen.
We just close the door.
I had, one time I had an investigation where the parents, the grandmother had passed away, and they were saying that the grandmother was communicating with the grandson on a telephone that was not connected, just, like nothing.
I've had that before. My grandparents passed away from my dad's side. I had that. I seen them. I spoke to them. I think I was only like 10 years old, something like that.
Kids don't.
Yeah. And I could remember it very clearly, like it was yesterday.
Yes. Children, like everything. That's why I'm saying a lot of times when people go to sleep, you kind of become like when you're a kid. That inner chatter that tells you this bullshit, that can't be real, blah, 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 blah. It quiets down, and that's sometimes why you either have vivid dreams or when you're falling asleep, that you'll hear something sometimes, depends if you're a little bit clairaudient, you'll hear something, whether it's your name, or sometimes people say, I hear a whisper, I can't make out what they're saying.
I had that before when they go,
yes.
A little whisper, I've had that before.
You what?
My mom's uncle.
Really?
And one night, he came into my room. I woke up and I saw him.
Okay, go ahead, drop it in there.
And I just looked at him, and I went right back to sleep. Woke up the next morning, my mom got a phone call saying that her uncle had passed away.
And that's, those what they call crisis apparitions, that happens a lot. I had another girl I knew, same thing, her grandfather. He was in another country. Yeah. And she says all of a sudden, at the end of the hallway, she sees like somebody cross from like one room to the other. And she said her grandfather would always wear a cowboy hat. And she's thinking, man, that looked like my grandfather, but he can't be, he's in another country. And then she says she looked down the hallway, she saw him standing there with his cowboy hat. And she told her mom, and I think later that evening or the next day, they got news that he had passed away. Yeah. They never saw him again.
No, he was at the foot of my bed, and I told my mom that morning.
It was like,
I saw your uncle in my bed for some reason. Like, you should call and find out.
Well, what was it? Did he say anything to you, or did he have what I call the dead look?
No, it was just like him, like I'm looking at you right now.
And that's one of the things I tell people. One of the things that it's a dead person is that they have no expression. Their eyes are usually very wide and unblinking. Yeah. And they have something that even if you try, you can't. No expression. Even if you stand,
serious face.
You can't. Right. Like no emotion, and the eyes are fixed, and there's no blinking. And as a normal person, there's something in you that's going, that's not right.
What was up with the fifth floor?
It's okay. The only thing I can think of is that that's unused. I didn't go in there, and I've been in there before, and it just smelled stale. I don't know, did it smell bad now? Really? Okay, see, it didn't. I was there like a week ago?
About a week ago.
In the daytime, and it just smelled stale, like something that there's no circulation.
The water.
Yeah, I cannot tell you why. I cannot tell you. But from what I understand, besides that's the floor where the cleaning lady saw the lady walk, when there were tenants there, that bathroom just made people feel uncomfortable. Who knows what went in there? So yeah, that there might be something there. Possibly that it doesn't have to be. It could just be, maybe some woman was always going in there crying.
Can I ask you a really important question?
Sure.
Can you take a selfie with us?
Sure. Here's my little green basket.
Sorry. We're big fans. Can you turn your light on so that I have a light? I got it.
You got it, right? Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural, and I'm hoping you enjoyed this video about this fantastic paranormal tour that we had here in this beautiful landmark in downtown Miami called the Alfred I. Dupont building, which after several visits, I'm thoroughly convinced does have hauntings, both residual and active. And as you can see, even when we had a slew of people walking around, there were those that showed me evidence that they had captured right away or experiences such as the smells. And again, I'm asking if anybody was there that would like to send me any type of evidence or any type of feedback concerning what they encountered on the tour. I would love to hear from you. Even if you're not sure what it is, please get back to me. Just go to the website, miamighostchronicles.com, and please let me know or forward the pictures to me. Again, I would love to hear back from anybody that had any type of occurrence either while you were there or afterwards. And even if you weren't part of the tour, if you've ever been down in that area, which as you can see by the story that I was telling them, what we see now with our eyes present day is not exactly what was there. There's layers and layers and layers of different locations and occurrences and things that happen that you just don't see with your visible eye, but sometimes you do have a paranormal experience that are tied to what's there. So if you happen to be one of those people that either works in the downtown area or frequents it a lot, and you've had any type of unusual either feeling, encounter, smell, anything of that nature, go ahead and get a hold of me. Let me know what you experience, and do not be concerned thinking, or in other words, dismiss it as this is just my imagination, because chances are it might not be, or believe me, I've heard all the stories. So on the contrary, I am ready to believe you. So again, please like this video, subscribe to my channel. I hope you like this video because I love producing them for you. And I want to wish everybody a super duper happy Halloween. Have a great time. And thank you so much for viewing.